You get to actually enjoy the beach.
Finally. I think it's the perfect weather, the perfect water temp. It's a nice sandy beach. I've got my book. I'd call that a win. Welcome to Hoffmaster State Park.
Hofmaster State Park is about 1,200 acres, and it's on the west side of Michigan, right on Lake Michigan. And it is a big place with a lot of things to do.
It definitely has a lot of things to do here. There's a beach, there's a visitor center, there's trails, which in the summer are hiking and the winter cross-country skiing. It's just a big park.
There's so many things. It's hard to remember them all. But no, it really is. It's a great place for families, especially too. There's a really big campground. It's about 300.
Almost 300 sites, yeah.
300 sites. Really nice campground that is, you feel like you're tucked into the woods. There's not a lot of privacy necessarily visually between your neighbors because they're really tall trees, but you feel like you're in the woods. There's a lot of shade.
That's for sure. The shade is a big deal there because it is pretty much like an old growth type forest. And so they're tall, a lot of pine trees. So while you don't have a lot of foliage between the sites, you're definitely not going to burn up from the heat.
Yeah, there are some sites that are more open, but a lot of them are in the shade, and they seem to be decent size. There's some parts of the loops where you have neighbors kind of back to back, but there's outer loops where you have the woods behind you. So that's something to definitely look at the map when you're trying to decide where you want to camp. That gives you a little extra privacy. So it just seemed like a really nice, it was pretty quiet. A lot of families, but it's still really quiet.
It was very quiet. That was one of the first things I noticed as we were biking through was how quiet it was. I mean, in the middle of the day, so I think a lot of people were at the beach, but there were still a lot of kids riding around on bikes and playing with a little remote control cars. And yeah, it just felt very serene. There were quite a few people sleeping in hammocks. So I thought, hey, great way to spend the afternoon.
Well, they probably sent their kids off to do one of the many things that there are to do here. There's hiking trails. There's quite a few miles of hiking trails. There's the beach. There's a beach for the campground, and then there is a main beach at the day use area. There is the Genevieve Gillette Visitor Center that we went into. Mm-hmm. So that's a cool place to check out. This is, it's Hoffmaster State Park, named for P.J. Hofmeister, who's the father of the state parks, right?
Yeah, he was the first state park superintendent. He sort of was instrumental in helping create the state park system in the, 1919. We're celebrating the centennial this year, and so he sort of helped found all of that, and then became the longest serving director of the Department of Conservation after he kind of got promoted into that role. So he's definitely was an influential person in the state of Michigan.
So yeah, you have Hoffmaster State Park, and inside it is the Gillette Visitor Center, and she's got her own history and is very influential in the state park system.
Behind me is the Genevieve Gillette Visitor Center. I've talked about Genevieve before. Her name's come up a few times in the state park history, and she's a little bit of a hero. She was a pioneer of women's rights and conservation long before it was popular. She was the first female to graduate in the landscape architecture program from Michigan Agricultural College, what we now know as Michigan State University. She went on to a successful career working under the noted architect Jens Jensen, and then later serving under P.J. Hofmeister, helping to scour land in the state of Michigan that could be turned into the state parks. She was really influential, has received a lot of accolades over her career. And as a result, they ended up naming the visitor center here at Hofmeister for her, just because it was such a great honor and for everything that she did for the state of Michigan. She lived until 1986, and that was great because she saw a lot of land being turned into state parks. And I just think it's really awesome that everybody recognized her for her achievements because, like I said, she was well ahead of her time, especially as a female in the conservation field. And we really have her and Hofmeister to thank for pretty much everything that we have here in the state park system today. Don't miss your chance while you're here visiting Hofmaster State Park to stop in at the Genevieve Gillette Visitor Center. It's really cool. There's all sorts of displays and diagrams of what sand dunes are, how they're formed through the different seasons, what animals are here, what kind of habitats you'll find, and just a lot of the different ecology and ecosystems that you'll find here in the state park system.
but it's just a really cool place to kind of hang out. Oh, we're on a boardwalk on top of a dune. Kind of forgot where we were standing. So when you talk about things to do, if you want to wear your kids out, there's a good-sized stairway to climb the dune, and then they will sleep very well at night.
You could totally make a game out of that. Count the steps, you know, up and down and around. And I mean, it is a nice view out over Lake Michigan, too, once you get to the top. So it's well worth the climb.
And there is a ADA boardwalk that goes out to part of the dune system too. It doesn't go up this high.
Not to the overlook, unfortunately.
But there, from the Gillette Visitor Center, you have the climb up the dune through the stairs. You have the ADA boardwalk. You have a path down to Lake Michigan. So there's just a lot of different ways to get to things to do here, and it's just it's a very popular park. I was really surprised going through the campground today that there were some campsites still open. We were here on a Saturday afternoon. But as we were leaving the campground, a number of people were lined up coming in. So I think they're just starting to arrive and maybe grabbing kind of that last week before schools start up in late August, because we're here in mid-August. So
yeah. Hoffmaster State Park is just sort of special to me. This is the park that we grew up coming to as kids. We never camped here, but it was the place that my parents would, you know, throw us in the car on a Saturday or Sunday morning, load up with the picnic supplies and all our beach gear, and we would spend the day here. So this, you know, means something to me just because this is probably the state park that I spent the most time at growing up. You know, we'd bring some friends and spend the day and chill on the beach. And it was just a really nice place coming. And so I always love to come back here. I would say it feels like home, but it's not. It's just probably one of my favorites. Oh my God.
So you grew up coming to this beach at Hofmaster. What happened to the beach?
Where's the beach? I mean, we've seen this, not just the high levels, but in general, the water's been coming in and the dunes have been taking over. But yeah, I grew up coming here, and this was a vast, very wide, very white sandy beach. And it's not so much. We definitely were not packed on top of each other like this before. We've mentioned before about how dunes move, and this is a great example. Growing up here, you could walk and stand in this exact same spot and just see forever down the beach. I mean, it was just flat and wide open and people everywhere, but definitely wide open. And clearly in probably the 10 years since I've been here, the dunes have grown up a little bit and taken over.
Definitely a place if you have a family, if you enjoy the beach, if you enjoy Lake Michigan, if you want to see sand dunes. I mean, there's just a lot of things to do here, and I can see why it's really popular. And you know, I would definitely put on a list of places to check out. It is going to be popular, so if you want to camp here, this is one of those spots where you definitely want to get in early in that 6-month window where you can start reserving sites, particularly if you want to get one of the ones on the outside where you've got the woods behind you, don't have as many neighbors.
Another thing I would like to point out is Hoffmaster State Park is just maybe a half-hour north of Grand Haven State Park. And the two couldn't be further apart in the style of parks that they are. You have Grand Haven, which is basically a parking lot and a beach and a campground and a beach. And it is hot and sunny and crowded and busy and just, it's kind of crazy. You know, you drive 10 miles up the road and here you are in the wilderness, in nature. You still have a campground and a beach and a parking lot, but they're so different. And this parking lot was nowhere near full today. And yet when we were at Grand Haven, it was packed. And so, you know, if you don't want all the crowds and congestion, this is the place to be. I think that's why my family always came here, because it was a little less crowded. And I'm definitely still seeing that today. So, you know, spend the extra half hour and come up here where you have a little bit more space and quiet, and you get to enjoy nature just a little bit more.
And if you're here for the camping experience, I like this campground a lot better. It's much more, you know, kind of woodsy, and you're in sort of the state park, whereas the Grand Haven one was more of kind of a big open parking lot near the beach that people camped in. But to each his own. Everybody's got their idea of what they want to do, and you find the campground in the state park that works for you.
I agree. That does make sense. Plus, I know with Grand Haven, it is a big draw with the channel there and being able to walk into town. And, you know, they've got a lot of things to do here. This is a little bit closer to Norton Shores. So there's town nearby, but it's not just a, you know, it's not just a quick, you know, walk down the boardwalk to get into town. So you're going to have to drive. So pluses and minuses to all the different state parks in Michigan, but this just happens to be one of my favorites.
So through this series, we have been bringing you a lot of information on a lot of state parks. Go visit some of them. Find your favorite. Keep on trekking.
And we'll see you out there.